Morning everyone, or is it? I think it's afternoon now. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Actually, I seem to be totally the opposite to Kevin, because I seem to just accept any invitation to speak at the moment. Such is the fact that I like my own voice so much. But I get an opportunity to go out and talk about big society a lot. And like I've done today, what I've not done is prepare an awful lot. I have got a video to show and maybe some things to discuss at the end. But sort of, the world is changing so much that if I try and produce a presentation one week, it is absolutely dead by the next week. And also with three speakers like we've had today, I wanted to make sure that I was able to maybe pick up a thread and some of the issues that we've got. And if I get very negative about big society in the next half hour, it's not a criticism of Eden in any way, shape or form. I might get critical. What I've been doing, I've been taking the temperature when I've been going around speaking, so I feel that what I'm saying, I've tested in front of a lot of audiences, and there's a lot of feedback from my voluntary sector colleagues in particular about some of the things I'm going to say to you. The structure, if I've just planned it right, is going to be something like, how's it playing out with, and I'm going to say third sector just because I'm told I'm not allowed to say it a lot of times. Some sound bites for the Twitterati so that John can get some nice little Twitter sound bites up there. Some of my concerns around the big society, and then I'm going to finish with a video, maybe some discussions for you at the table, and about a campaign that we've been doing at Voluntary Sector North West, which I think fits very much and is a bit more like the concept of me showing you some of the big society in action, maybe, that we think about. So, some things. I also feel as though I should say, I probably feel as though I should say, hey, aren't we smug? We're the voluntary sector, we're going to deliver everything now, so don't worry if everything's shutting down out there. But I feel that actually, and I've been getting concerned about the language being used about public sector workers, whether they be civil servants, whether they be town hall staff and the likes, the talk of sort of faceless bureaucrats who do nothing, sit on their backsides all day but cause problems. And I think that's really dangerous and difficult, and I think that what we should be doing right now with the voluntary sector and the statutory sector is working together closely and positively and working with one another. And that is the message I give out to the voluntary sector right now. Now is not the time for fighting with our statutory sector partners. There is no point going to Eden Council and going, don't cut all of this when they've got £1.1 million less. That's what they've got, that's the hand they've been dealt, and we need to work within that. And we need positive relationships and knocking on doors and saying, how can we get out of this together? I don't necessarily believe the mantra of we're in it together, but the only way out of this is by working together and working closely. And I'll continue to push that mantra, and will not start to take the easy pickings of just flagging different sectors and different people in any way, because I think that's cheap and easy and not positive for any of us. So you might have guessed then that what I'm saying is, within the voluntary sector that I've been working with, generally, the response to big society has been fairly negative. It has been a lot of, we're already doing this. I think what we heard from Eden there, I nearly said Eden Valley, I've now learned I don't say Eden Valley. What we heard from Eden there, oh, a lot was that was going on. That was not something new. And governments don't like the message that comes back when you say we're already doing it. So that's been a bit of a catch point. There's been concern over, the localism stuff where we hear, I said to you about the language of the third sector. The government came out and said, big society, local, it's all down to you, over to you. By the way, we're banning the use of the term third sector, which seemed to me to be the last, the first thing you do isn't ban some language when you're saying we'll leave it to you. So I sort of feel that the language of the third sector is coming. It's interesting, they banned the term, but if any of you manage to read, I've got to say it's one of the worst strategy documents I've ever seen produced by a government department. Office of Civil Society launched a Building the Big Society strategy 5 days before comprehensive spending review, and 4 times it says in that strategy, this is subject to CSR. Yeah? Or why did they publish that, I will never know. They published that and they used the third sector throughout it, which is really interesting. They slipped back, they failed to ban the language. I find them sorts of things very difficult. The community organisers, 5,000 community organisers we hear are going to be trained. I was reading in that strategy, it says that the community organisers will play a key role in bringing voluntary sector organisations together. That is fantastic, because do you know what? As a voluntary sector network, we've never thought of bringing voluntary sector organisations together. I'm so glad we're getting 5,000 people who are going to help us do that. So there's a huge cynicism. My Square Mile, I don't know if you've known about that initiative. We had the Big Society Network was developed, sort of supposedly grassroots, bottom-up network that had 5 staff from DCLG seconded to it to support it being grassroots and bottom-up network. They've had one regional meeting, which was in the town hall in Stockport. Since that meeting, they've actually stopped having regional meetings because they weren't quite getting the messages they wanted to hear. But Big Society Network is about, is driving this agenda, saying, one of their initiatives is My Square Mile. They say that so much of the talk is about 1 square mile in Westminster that actually we should be asking people what they should do in their square mile to make a difference. And I thought that's my first response to that was that's a really urban initiative, isn't it? Because we heard that Eden has 800 plus square miles, and I bet you quite a few of them square miles don't have any people in them. So that initiative that they want some action in every square mile is going to be challenging. Yeah? So that's me doing my cheap, cynical shots. And now for some of my sound bites. I fear that actually what we're seeing now is actually a centralisation of control and a localisation of blame. Yeah? That actually we will see control is being done by budgets and the lack of money that's coming down. What we will see is, if you're not getting what you want in your area, that's your fault because you haven't come together. You did dig that road up, Sarah. It's your fault you haven't got any electricity. We will see, if the council's decided not to spend on this, the government will say, we didn't make that decision, you guys over there did it, that's your problem, your fault, you sort it out. And I was thinking this morning, what we've got is a move to the F word and a lack of the use of the E word, right? And what I mean by that is, equalities seems to have gone. It's not part. In the Enterprise Bill, the white paper published this week, the word equality is not mentioned once. I can't recall the last time a white paper probably never even paid lip service to equality. But what we've got is the use of the term fairness, which means something very, very different. And I think I heard it said this morning on this platform that, to me, inequality is an acceptable outcome, is not just an acceptable outcome, is an inevitability in the delivery of big society. Yeah? If we deliver big society, we will get some inequality. There are losers in this. And I find it very difficult to get behind any movement that has inequality as an outcome. And it scares me, and I think it's problematic, and I think we need to unpick it more and think about what that is. Okay, so I'm worried about that move. One of the other things that's just come through this is the use of loans. The Big Society Bank is going to be loans, yeah? Local authorities have been given, or to be given, tell me if I'm wrong, greater powers to borrow, to invest. And the private sector are going to have to borrow like never before to deliver things like the work programme. At the same time as I hear government telling me how bad the debt is, how bad it is to be in debt and how we must manage our money, the public sector, the private sector and the voluntary sector are all been encouraged to borrow. Yeah? We're all been encouraged to borrow. And I tell you what, I notice on some of the Twitter chat that's going on in the room, there's talk about the community sector. Well, I'm on a few boards in the voluntary sector, stroke community sector. It won't be the small ones that can borrow. Yeah? It will be the big. There is a total contradiction of the small and large. And we've got this issue about other policies. Whilst I was speaking last week at a SIPFA conference about commissioning and procurement, a tweet came through from Communities and Local Government, which is a celebratory tweet saying 9 authorities in Scotland are coming together for their commissioning to make commissioning better and save money. Yippee. What will that do for localism? What will that do for voluntary and community groups in individual authority areas that will allow them to survive, thrive and move forward? It won't. Bigger commissioning. The work programme will not drive voluntary sector involvement in the work programme the way it's set up. If we do huge, big commissioning, we will not get small, local activity from community groups and voluntary groups. Commissioners need to look at that. We need to look at that in authorities and in other public sector partners. We have to look at the way we commission and see whether actually what we're doing is killing the big society with our commissioning processes or whether we're allowing it to thrive. And that we know that costs money. Intelligent commissioning actually costs money. And this is the problem at the moment. Everything seems to be about saving. And I think my cynicism is probably starting from the fact of where lots of my colleagues are starting from, which is a position where actually the government has been so successful in driving the cuts agenda in terms of everybody going, oh no, there's no money, that everybody assumes that every policy initiative is based on how do we save money, not on it's a good idea. Yeah? So it's almost we've got a negative slant on before we started. So it makes even if, you know, because how can you argue against some of the core theory of big society? Community involvement, getting people involved more in local activity, great. Some of us have been working for that forever. You know, that's what I got involved in the voluntary sector because I believe there's an awful, you know, that voluntary community activity is the lifeblood of our communities. I know that when I go off and do my volunteering, that makes me feel really good when I've been feeling really crap about my life at work or other things. I know I feel good about contributing something and I get something out of it. And I want to preach that as a mantra and hope that other people can. You know, because I think it's important. I didn't come in the voluntary sector to start being the state, to start delivering statutory sector services. And that is what the vast majority of organisations, particularly community organisations, will say. We don't exist to deliver statutory services. We want to influence how they're delivered. We want to make things better in our area. We want to help. We want to be involved. We didn't come together so that we could start running everything. Now, I know there will be differences and there will be some people that have done that, but that is not what it's all about. There was one final thing on the my soundbite moment, which was when I was watching the presentation, the first one by Francis, and he talked about civil servants coming beyond Watford. Yeah, and it just reminded me how bad a move I think it is. My colleagues in the sector have felt it is, judging by the responses we've got to our petition, that government office just disappears from the northwest, just like that. Because actually, that was our connection to Westminster. That was our ability to speak to somebody. When I was able to speak to Liz Meek, the director, when I still am, I'm speaking to her this afternoon, I know that I'm speaking to somebody who will be having a meeting with Eric Pickles tomorrow, who will be seeing Francis Maud, who will be talking to senior civil servants down there. Now, I am so far, I will be so disconnected from Westminster, and many of us will. We're told that we'll be able to use the internet much more to do these things. Nothing beats that face-to-face relationship, that interpretation. And somebody who can talk for the North down in Westminster, I'm really petrified of losing that. I think it's important and we need to think about that. Some more of my concerns, the contradictions. Oh no, let's talk about volunteering for a second. Because volunteering, I just check what you're saying about me on Twitter. Oh, thank you. No, this is an email I received last night, and I thought this was quite useful to use. It says, I'm speaking at another conference in March. Somebody was asking me for my content of my speech in March. I didn't know what my content of this speech was until 12:05 this afternoon, so it's difficult for me, that one. And I'm doing it with somebody else. And they asked me, can you get their logo? I said, hi Richard, apologies for not sending you this sooner. I'm afraid I ramped out of the office completely forgetting I said I would email it. On the plus side, by sending it to you at this time of night, I'm pretty sure I can count this email as voluntary and community activism, which I believe you can earn points for these days. I'm not sure what points get you, presumably money off at Marks and Spencer's, or perhaps discount membership with, you know, and it goes on, yeah? And that's the sort of cynicism that I'm seeing from colleagues about volunteering. To me, volunteering is what it says. It is volunteering. And I was starting to unpack this the other day, that if we're going to start rewarding, Lambeth are rewarding apparently, so if we're going to start rewarding voluntary activity, what do we reward? If I'm the treasurer of the, I don't know, anti-fox hunting league, is that bad volunteering? And is good volunteering being a governor at the school? You know, is bad volunteering being a political activist for not the party of the day? And is good volunteering chairing the parish council? Yeah. How do we decide what is good and bad? Who makes that judgment? How do we store up the points without some bureaucracy, actually? Is fishing, you know, a shopping trolley out of the river worth more than helping the lady next door? Is ferrying my children around to all the voluntary groups, sports groups that they take part in, not worth anything? Whereas if I was, you know, I don't know, sat tweeting about local authority activity, that would be something that I'm allowed to do. I'm allowed to get involved actively. Actually, would we professionalise volunteering in such a way that those people who have been activists, who